Okay, endocrine system. So, endocrine system, we're doing this on an abbreviated level, okay? Kind of shrinking this down, this particular unit or chapter down, and trying to get the most important parts out of it because we don't want to overload you with a lot of new information right before the exam. Now, the key thing about the endocrine system is that the endocrine system is our second control system of the body. So it goes along very well with nervous system, right? So nervous system controls and coordinates, master puppeteer, something like that, the other activities of the other cells and organs of the body. Endocrine system does that too, but there's some slight differences, okay? So differences in that nervous system is very fast, right? We send that action potential down, and we can get that muscle to twitch, and just as fast as we start it, we can stop it, and it goes back and relaxes, okay? Endocrine system is going to be a bit slower, okay? Now, the reason that the endocrine system is going to be a bit slower is the nervous system is a wired system. We've got a direct neuron or nerve that goes from central nervous system down to the particular muscle, and we can stimulate that when we want to, and we can stop when we don't want to. And what we do is we release those neurotransmitters at the synapse, and it stimulates that cell, okay? So it's very specific, it's very quick. With the endocrine system, it's a wireless system. So it also uses chemicals in order to stimulate target cells, but rather than having a direct path to get there, what it does is an endocrine gland creates a hormone, that's the chemical messenger, and it dumps it into the cardiovascular system, okay? So it dumps it into the blood, and it leaves it up to the blood to get that chemical messenger, that hormone, to the target organ. Now you can imagine, right? There are blood vessels everywhere in the body. So if we have like the pituitary gland that you'll see on the nervous system, exercises tonight, the pituitary gland is attached to the brain, but it's an endocrine gland that releases hormones. And when it releases a hormone, well, great. It's like dropping it into the gutter out front of your house, right? And trying to get it to somebody over in Tempe. Well, there's a chance, right, with all the sewage system and stuff like that, it might flow through there and by there eventually, but it could end up in Clean Creek or wherever, right? So with this system, if you dump a chemical messenger or a hormone into the blood, it's a big circuit, so it's going to get by that target cell sometime, but you don't know exactly when, okay? So that means it's going to take a little bit longer for this system to get that message across. Now when we say longer, okay, nervous system, it's milliseconds. Milli means 1,000, right? So it's like 5 milliseconds, and we can get that signal from your brain to your foot or something like that. Endocrine system, it's more like, hundredths of a second or something like that instead. So on a relative scale, it's slower, but if you, for instance, were on your way to school and somebody almost ran you off the road, you have this big adrenaline rush, right, where you're all hyped up. You're like, I almost went off the road, and you're all hyped up, and your heart rate's going and stuff like that. That comes from the autonomic nervous system, sympathetic stimulation, but it also comes from your adrenal glands on top of your kidneys releasing adrenaline, also called epinephrine, into the bloodstream. And that gets all of your muscles ready and your heart ready, and et cetera. And you can feel that rush come on, and you can also feel the fact that it takes a while for you to calm down from that. So it's not just like, get ready, and now stop stimulating it and you're calm. It takes a while for that to settle down because those hormones, that adrenaline, is going around your system for a while. Okay? So the endocrine system is still going to be coordinating body activities. It's going to be a little bit slower and a little bit longer duration because we're using the blood in order to transport those chemical messengers around. Now the other thing to think about when we do that is how, if that hormone is going around everywhere, how come it's not just lighting up every single cell that it passes by as it's going around? Well, to a certain extent, just like at the synapse, the target cell has to have the correct shaped receptor that matches that particular chemical, right? So if this is a triangular shaped receptor, I got to have a triangular shaped molecule that's going to fit in it for that lock and key mechanism to stimulate that cell. And so If I drop an epinephrine hormone into the blood, only cells that have the right shaped receptor to fit that epinephrine are going to then be stimulated by that hormone. If you don't have the right receptor, that hormone just passes by and nothing happens. Okay? So it has to do with that receptor, and that's what makes it specific. Now, the other thing that we kind of compare when we're looking at endocrine system is we've talked about glands before, but we've been talking about them as like sweat glands and sebaceous glands and things like that, right? Glands where we produce a secretion, but it goes into a little pipe or a duct and it gets secreted into the local area, like sweat onto the surface of the skin, or lacrimal glands, which are the glands that produce tears that wash across the eye, right? They have little ducts, little pipes that drain those tears onto the surface of the eye, okay? Endocrine glands are different. They produce a secretion, but they don't go into a little duct. They don't have a duct. They just dump their secretion right into the blood, and the blood is what transports it around. And it's long distance as opposed to right in the local area. Okay? So that's the difference between an endocrine gland and an exocrine gland. Okay, so like we said, the system as itself functions to communicate with cells using chemicals called hormones, and these hormones are going to regulate various what we call metabolic processes. And these are generally going to occur on longer time scales. So, for instance, we'll see these hormones being secreted on different time scales. Like you may see the secretion levels go up at night and go down during the day for a particular hormone. You may see them go up only, like epinephrine only goes up, oh, stressful situation, now it comes out. And the rest of the day I'm calm, so it doesn't come out for a while, right? Or you may see it come like sex hormones, right? Sex hormones are at very low levels when you're a child. Then you go through puberty, and those levels go up, particularly testosterone. They go up, and they stay high for the rest of your adult life. Now, for females, the sex hormones have all kinds of cycles, but it's on a monthly cycle, right? So you'll see estrogen levels go up for a while, and then they'll drop down again. You'll see progesterone levels go up for a while, and they'll drop down again. So there's different types of periods to when these are being secreted, et cetera, okay? So, but it's a whole lot longer than just like we saw with nervous system, okay? Okay. All right, so what we're going to do when we get into this system is we're going to do, in essence, a little tour of these different types of endocrine glands, okay? So there's two major things that we're going to talk about next time. The first thing is we said that all these endocrine glands produce hormones, but technically the hormones that we make are in two basic chemical classes. There's some hormones that are water-loving, that when we throw them into the blood, they do just fine, because the plasma of the blood is basically water. So they're floating around in the water with no problem, okay? The second chemical class of hormones are actually water-fearing. They're hydrophobic instead. And these are actually based on the molecule cholesterol. And cholesterol is hydrophobic. It's basically lipophilic. It's basically a fat, right? And so for those, when we put that in the blood, it doesn't work so well. It has to be escorted via a carrier molecule. But when it gets to the target cell, okay, when it gets to the target cell, we have a lipid bilayer. It slips very easily into the target cell through that lipid bilayer in order to stimulate that cell. So that's the first thing that we'll talk about next time is these two different chemical classes of hormones and what the differences are. So how these glands make these hormones and how they're similar and different. The next thing that we do and the last thing that we do in the bulk of the chapter is just taking a tour through the major endocrine glands of the body and talking about the hormones that they put out and what those hormones do. Now, in my email that I sent earlier today, it was kind of reminding you guys that like with the nervous system, the parts of the brain, a lot of people find it easy to do flashcards and say, okay, occipital lobe, processes visual input and stuff like that, and do flashcards for the different areas of the brain and what they do. This is another area where for a lot of people, flashcards work well. So you write on the front of the card, you write the name of the hormone. On the back of the card, you write what it does and where it comes from. Like the pituitary gland secretes it, and it, causes the uterus to contract or something like that. And on the front, it's oxytocin. So that kind of helps to break it up a little bit so that you have the bulk of the information from the chapter, learning about these hormones and what they do, but it's broken down into little bits that you can do one at a time. Okay? So that's mostly what we'll do next time, is talk about the different hormones that are in the body and what they do in helping to regulate the internal condition. Okay? So I think what we'll do is we'll stop there for today. We'll hit those 2 topics tomorrow. Different chemical classes of hormones, and then just do our tour of the different endocrine glands and the hormones they put out.